good Luka Modric has been throughout his career. Take a look at the Ballon d'Or and how they've been competed against over the last 15 years.
Yep.
They've been dominated by two players, Cristiano and Messi.
He's the guy to break that.
He's the guy to break that. He is the one. He is the man. A generational talent. One of the best passers, midfield players that we've seen in the modern era. Luka Modric today, one of the reasons Croatia wasn't effective was how they limited Luka Modric, how they overwhelmed him. And when he had to play, when he had the ball, it was pretty much lateral. There were no penetrating balls in favor of the Croatian attack, because usually it's Luka Modric breaking those lines. Usually it's Luka Modric pulling those strings. They forced other players to try to do that. And when you can limit a player like Luka Modric, you're going to have a good chance of being successful.
So Modric is one of these guys that I think is really difficult to quantify, like what he does, because maybe you'll correct me. I mean, where's the number 10? But I've never thought of him as like a pure out-and-out 10 central attacking midfielder. Is that what you see him as, an 8? But he's like such a creative 8. And I think usually when we think of 8s and you say box to box, you think of a guy with 6 lungs, you know, as they say in Spanish. He's really a technical 8 box-to-box guy, and I think that's so rare. Like, that's not usually the thing you focus on at that position, which is maybe goes to show just why he stood out for so long.
37 years old, and we said it versus Brazil, he was one of the freshest guys on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, physically, he looked just as fresh, just as good as anybody on that field, but technically, he was head and shoulders above the majority. If you think about his technical ability, if you think about his vision, if you think about his willingness just to do things for the team, like he's a competitor, he's a winner. This box-to-box may be unfair that we put him in, because he really is unlike most players. If you think of like an Iniesta, what he can do on the ball going forward.
He's a 10-8, man.
Iniesta was good, but he didn't give you defensively what a Luka Modric can give you.
Okay, so maybe he's even a 10-8 with like shades of 6.
I mean, there's definitely shades. I don't know shades of 6, but box-to-box, absolutely. He puts in that effort.
I always think about stats, and like, again, to say it's difficult to quantify. Is there a more important stat for a central midfield player than wins?
No.
And if so,
for
I mean, he's in the conversation for greatest midfielders of all time then, right? If we look at international, what he's done with a Croatia team that, you got to go back to '98 to find them having similar success. And then what he did at Real Madrid and is doing at Real Madrid.
Listen, I know this is a huge debate, whether it's what trio has done more in the midfield.
I love what you're going to do here.
The Barcelona trio.
We don't cause enough controversy
or the Real
on this
Madrid
show.
trio. But he's been that good at the club level.
Yeah.
And if you've seen, I mean, you've obviously seen it. But if you see what this Croatian team was able to do, I mean, it's a World Cup final. It's going to be a third-place game here. For a Croatian team that didn't necessarily play how you would expect a Luka Modric team to play, just kind of grind you out. It speaks volumes of who Luka Modric is and the competitor he is.
Producer Beto, who is in no way, I want to assure folks, a Barcelona fan, says no one will remember how those Real Madrid teams played.
Only the wins. Okay. How many were they, Producer Beto?
Steady.
I'm just curious.
All right, we fight enough in our production meetings.
No, this is because he's, Barcelona. I know that it's sacred ground when we talk about Iniesta and Xavi and Busquets, but is there a better midfield when you're talking club level?
It's a good debate. Let's leave it for another
Casemiro,
episode.
Modric, and Kroos?
Of the show. Speaking of Argentina, this seems to be not just, for me, it's pretty clearly their best performance of the tournament. Maybe some of that you put down to Croatia. Does momentum matter this late in a tournament? Does it, for you, is it something that carries over into a final?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, it can carry over into a final. I mean, you'd rather play well heading into a final than limp through a final and have all these doubts, any kinds of doubts, whether it's injury, whether it's suspension, whether it's like morale, whether it's physical, whatever you want. You don't want those doubts. One of those lasting images in those final minutes was were the Argentine players on the sideline, on the bench, singing with the rest of the stadium. The morale in this group right now is so strong.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way, especially with this culture, the Argentine culture.